was rallying workers and showing what real solidarity looks like with working people.
Can you guys hear me? How's it sound?
Mr.
Sounds good?
Sounds good. Conservative Party.
You gonna cue me? Okay.
To a picket line in his whole life.
We are live. Good morning from Winnipeg, Manitoba. We are here at the NDP Leadership Convention in Winnipeg. I'm Desmond Cole, reporting for The Breach. And what a morning we are about to witness here. We're so glad for you to be joining us wherever you are. Thanks very much for tuning in. We've been here all weekend providing coverage of this leadership campaign, and this morning, in I would say about 20 minutes from now, we are going to hear the announcement of who is going to be the new leader of this political party. Obviously, we know that the NDP has been through a really tumultuous year and a bit, going back to the election of 2025, when their leader Jagmeet Singh brought them into the election. They had about 24. They had 24 seats. They were knocked down to 7 after the 2025 election, when Mark Carney and the Liberals made this kind of unprecedented and unexpected comeback that no one thought that they were going to make. The NDP lost their party status at that time. They lost a lot of experienced MPs. When you lose party status, that means you lose a lot of funding, you lose the ability to speak as much in the House of Commons. And so this has been a really trying time. Of course, their former leader, Jagmeet Singh, he left. He resigned on election night, announced that he was resigning, stepped away from the party shortly thereafter. And actually, in fact, the interim leader of the party, Don Davies, is about to be speaking. You can see the convention hall behind me. I'm just a few steps away from all of where the delegates are gathering. People are still streaming in. The voting is finished. Voting happened up until last evening. You could vote here in person. You could vote online. But the voting ended last night at 7 p.m. So the results are in and are going to be announced imminently. So I mentioned that Don Davies has been the interim leader of the party, and in our travels here, we were actually able to talk with Don Davies and do a little bit of an interview. My wonderful team here at The Breach is just sitting right behind me. You can't see them, but they're going to be helping guide us through the next couple of hours of coverage. And I hope we do have that interview of Don Davies, the interim leader of the party. Last night would have been, his final evening being the leader of the party before now, and the transition is going to happen immediately to whomever we're about to hear from. So Don Davies is about to take the stage shortly, actually, and he's going to speak. So we're going to actually go to Don Davies right now. We're going to go to our interview with him. Yeah, so here's our interview from yesterday with Don Davies. I am here with Don Davies. It's your last day as interim leader of the NDP. How are you feeling, emotionally today?
Generally I'm feeling really uplifted. It's been a really rewarding last 10 months. I feel really privileged to have been afforded the opportunity to lead this great team of people. But as we stand on the cusp of a new leader, I'm feeling the energy, the momentum. I'm feeling the excitement of taking that next step forward. So overall, I'm just feeling really, really optimistic.
How many conventions is this for you now?
Oh, I don't want to count them all.
Okay.
No, I'm teasing. Oh, I don't know. I think probably we've gone to about 15.
Okay, wow. I'm asking because I wonder if there's any differences that you feel or that you notice being here this weekend versus in the past.
That's an excellent question. The short answer is yes. First of all, it's a very, very well-attended convention. We have almost 2,000 delegates, so that's really a big turnout. But I'm also struck by the number of young people that are here. You go to regional caucuses or issue caucuses, and they're standing room only, and you're seeing 15 people run for 3 positions. So the level of engagement, participation, and energy is really, I would say, off the charts.
I've noticed a lot of young people here too. We did Streeters yesterday. We were standing out there in the hallways, and it was almost like 90% of the people who were looking and volunteering to come and speak to us were younger folks. So renewal has been a big theme. So now when you look to the future, what does this party have to do, especially east of where we are in Winnipeg? There's 1 seat for the NDP federally. There's a lot of power here in the West. what does this party have to do to start reaching out in the places where it has lost support or where it just hasn't had it?
Big question. Well, I think first of all, we've got to keep doing what we've been doing, which is, we're reimagining what a bold, strong federal progressive party looks like. We're rebuilding. So I think that means opening the doors wide open, being an open source party, letting people come in from all walks of life, progressive allies, members, people who have never been in our party, and working together to shape what that offer looks like. And I consider the last election to be a real anomaly. I don't think that's reflective of where people really are at in this country. So I think that that rebuilding phase is going to spark people in every region, every province of the country. And our job is to go meet people where they're at, which includes everywhere in this country, and start listening to them. And as we build a program that reflects people's lived experience, particularly working people, I think that that's just going to spark across the country, and we're going to come roaring back next election everywhere.
Last question. There's been a lot of conversation in this election, in this leadership election, about unity, particularly between the federal party and the provinces. I know you know what I'm talking about. I've been hearing a lot about it. Do you have concerns going forward that there's a potential mismatch in ideology or in constituencies, in priorities between the federal party and some of its provincial counterparts that could be challenging for the NDP?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we live in a federated country. Right. This is one of the unique challenges of governing in Canada. And we see this just in politics writ large, right? We got a federal government and a whole bunch of provinces and territories that have very different realities and economies and cultures. And so it's a challenge of governing in Canada for everybody at all levels, at all times, of all parties. For us as a party, we're unique because we are a federated political party, the only one in the country.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a good thing. Just like we try to unite people, working people across the country, we unite them both in terms of their class interest, and we unite them in terms of where they live. We unite them nationally and, frankly, internationally.
Right.
So that's something that is a strength of our party, but it presents challenges as well. So I think what we need to do is we need to look for those things that unite us, the things that we share. It doesn't matter where you live in this country, and build on those. And we have to find ways to respect each other's differences. We can have respective policy differences. Unity does not mean uniformity.
Okay.
And, I trust people to make those distinctions that a policy that might work in one country or province doesn't work in another province. Let's look and find out how we can bridge that gap. And that's the stuff of politics, and that's a challenge for our party. And I look forward to working with my sisters and brothers and friends across the country to build that kind of consensus that I know will unify as Canadians and take the NDP to electoral success.
Well, let me congratulate you on your time as interim leader, and wish you the best on what comes next.
Thank you, Desmond. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
And I'm back with the managing editor of The Breach, Martin Lukacs. How's it going? So we just heard from Don Davies, and we're now hearing again from Don Davies, who's on stage behind us. Don Davies, the interim leader, now about to be replaced by whomever we're going to see coming up on stage, announced in a few minutes. Martin, just first of all, your feelings about how this convention, how this race has gone. We've been talking about this for 5 months now.
Well, I've been wearing a few hats, as Breach listeners know. I'm, the managing editor of the Breach, but also I've been an advisor to the Avi Lewis campaign. So I have a horse in the race, as it were. Yeah, I think it's a kind of momentous moment for the NDP. There was really a choice before the membership. Would they continue on the same track they have been going for the last few decades, tacking to the center, trying to play themselves off as a kind of light liberal, or to choose a more unapologetically progressive left-wing direction. That was embodied, I think, in the campaign of Avi Lewis. Other campaigns like Heather McPherson's pointed the way to that kind of continuity direction. So yeah, I'm curious to see what the final result will be. We have a sense, I think, of the numbers because.
Yeah, let's talk about that actually, because it's been hard sometimes to get numbers, up-to-date and accurate numbers from the party, how many members have signed up in the last while. But so what do we know empirically about what we might expect to see just now?
So the party membership, is are the people who can vote. So there's a difference between past conventions. So members, the way that they vote is it's one member, one vote. And that's only been the case for the last few leadership conventions for the NDP. Back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, basically the only people who could vote for a leader were people who were at a convention like this. So people who were delegated by their riding associations, by labor unions who are part of the NDP. Since 2003, it's been one member, one vote, though in 2003 it was weighted to account for labor's involvement in the party. So the leadership race for Thomas Mulcair and then Jagmeet Singh was based on one member, one vote. At that time, there were about 100,000 members. When Jagmeet Singh won, there were 120,000. This leadership race started at 60,000 members. So the party had been much reduced in membership. There were 50,000 new members who were signed up by the leadership campaigns, and 10,000 memberships expired. So when voting started in February, there were 100,000 members of the party, which is much less than there were in 2017. Of those, what we understand from the different campaigns getting the membership numbers is there's going to be an unprecedented turnout. Percentage-wise, the biggest there ever has been. The Avi Lewis's campaign's numbers seem to indicate that it's going to be a massive victory, but we'll have to see. So that's based on every day since the voting opened in early March. I know this is getting probably a bit nerdy, but I'm channeling my Eric Grenier. I can see him over there, the infamous numbers guy for CBC. So every day, basically, the party, after voting, happened that day, has been sent to the campaigns. Okay. So those campaigns who have really had a strong game, calling members, emailing them, texting them, finding out who their preference is, are able to make a kind of probabilistic guess about what the turnout will be like. And so the Avi Lewis campaign is saying that it looks really good.
Now, at the same time, I understand that the NDP in Alberta has a very large membership base. And of course, that's where Heather McPherson, the member from Edmonton Strathcona, the only MP in this race, she hails from Alberta. So there was a sense that if a large portion of that delegation turned out, that helps her and gives her a chance, because this has really been seen as a two-horse race between Avi Lewis and Heather McPherson. So what about her chances and trying to pull as many delegates as she can, not just obviously from Alberta, but from across the country?
Yeah, at the outset of the leadership race, the Alberta membership accounted for the preponderance of members. And that had to do because when Naheed Nenshi became the leader of the Alberta NDP, he signed up 60,000, 70,000 people. And so some of those members had stuck around. What we've seen over the course of this leadership race is a rebalancing of party memberships. Now, there are 35,000 members in Ontario, something like 27 or 28,000 in British Columbia, and only 20,000 in Alberta. Okay. So we've seen a kind of leveling out of where the membership might be, and so I think some of the hope that Heather McPherson's campaign had that the strength of Alberta membership would carry her to victory has not probably proven to be the case.
We're going to be bringing you back within the course of the next hour and a half. I know you're very excited to see what happens as we are. We'll bring you back in a little while. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Desmond.
Okay. So that's Martin Lukacs, the managing editor of The Breach, and of course an advisor to the Avi Lewis campaign, with some ideas about the numbers. The hall behind me continues to fill up. I'd say it's mostly full now. We're just minutes away, if they're on schedule, from hearing about who the new leader is going to be. So most of the delegates who are here live would probably be in the room now. And as I mentioned, voting has been closed. Before we get to the point where they announce the leadership, and we're going to switch our feed for you so that you can see what's happening on the stage when the moment comes. But I think it's important to mention a word or two about Jagmeet Singh, the outgoing, he's been gone, leader of the party. Of course, Don Davies replaced him last year. But, Jagmeet Singh was here on Friday at the beginning beginning of the convention. We said hello to him. He wasn't interested in giving us an interview at that point. I think he was really trying to say that, this moment is for the party and for whoever is new coming in, and he didn't want to take up too much space there. But I think it's important to say Jagmeet Singh led this party for 7 years, and the party really did experience a lot of tough times electorally under his leadership. There was the one campaign in 2021 where they maintained about level in their seat count. But other than that, 2019 they lost seats. And of course, we know last year, 2025, they were reduced from 24 to 7 seats. There was a video tribute to Jagmeet Singh on Friday at the beginning of the convention. He's been here, there has been some talk of him, but over the course of this race, and I don't know if this is abnormal, but I think it's worth mentioning that people haven't really talked too much about Jagmeet Singh. There's been a real desire, I think, to move on from the bad news and from the difficult results of the last year. And I just want to note that, because 7 years is a long time to lead a political party. And there are probably lessons to be learned about the last 7 years. Most of the candidates that I've spoken to this week were not really interested in reviewing those lessons and looking back at the past. They want to focus on the future. So this is a new day, and we're very interested to see what this result is going to bring and who the leader is going to be. And, as Martin mentioned, is there going to be a newer direction for the party? Also important to note that there was an executive leadership elections yesterday where there was some turnover and some change. Some of the old guard of executive perceived to be very kind of more labor supported and labor friendly were actually ousted and defeated by some more, I would say, progressive elements. And when we talk about the leadership race itself and how that factors in, it's supporters of Avi Lewis. It's I would loosely call it a slate of his supportive or sympathetic candidates who were really dominant in the executive elections yesterday. Is that a sign about what we're about to see here on stage? We'll see. There is a ranked ballot system for this leadership vote. So you rank the choices of your preference 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So Avi Lewis, Heather McPherson, Tennille Johnston, Tony McQuail, Rob Ashton, all have the opportunity to be selected in rank in order of preference by everyone who voted. And so if on the first ballot, one of these 5 candidates is able to secure 50% of all of the votes or more, that is over. They win. If they can't do that, if no one gets 50% on the first ballot, then what happens is, and this has already all been done automatically because the choices were all ranked, the bottom person drops off, and their second choices are reallocated. So whoever you voted for second, now their votes get passed on to the remaining candidates, and we look again. Okay, second round, has anyone gotten to 50%? And you just keep going like that until there are only 2 candidates left, and then naturally one of them will get 50% plus one of the votes, unless there's an absolute tie, which would be stunning. Probably won't happen. Don't be geared up for that. I don't want to make you anticipate something unlikely like that. But we're going to see a winner in that fashion. So just about really 5 minutes or less out now from when the party president is going to come up here on stage. And when the party president comes up on stage, we're going to switch over our view so that you can see everything that's happening behind me on stage. And we're going to hear the party leader announce the totals and tell us who the next leader of the federal NDP is going to be. We're in Winnipeg, so Wab Kinew, has been the talk of the town. This is his town. This is where he's the premier. He was here doing the opening on Friday. He's a rock star in this party. He's somebody who's being rumored in the future maybe that he'll be doing this, that he'll be at an election convention, leadership convention, contending for the leadership of the party. For now, he's been a huge ambassador and a huge key figure. He had a big speech that was well received here on Friday. He talked a lot about the Iran war and how he believed that Canada should be pulling away from that. He was chastising Mark Carney. And he talked about the party the importance of winning. Now, when you have one and when you are in power, it's an easier thing to say, I guess. It's nice to say that the key to governing is winning first, but he's not wrong about that, of course, right? And he charted a path to victory in this province. He ran a very powerful campaign a couple of years ago. And he's a very popular premier. Polls suggest that Wab Kinew is actually the most popular premier of all the provinces in Canada. But there's an interesting tension as well, because while people like Wab Kinew, while people like Naheed Nenshi in Alberta signed up a whole bunch of members, as Martin Lukacs alluded to, while they're very popular, we've got David Eby in the NDP provincially elected in British Columbia. Those Western New Democrats are of a different flavor than many of the other parts of the country. And quite frankly, depending on who wins this leadership, there are questions about whether the new leader, particularly if it's Avi Lewis, is going to mesh well, is going to work well with those Western parties, some of whom are pretty gung-ho like Wab Kinew about some new fossil fuel and energy developments. But, for example, Avi Lewis has said he doesn't want new fossil fuel projects. There's been a lot of stuff around in the environmental file, climate change targets. There are differing views within this one party over issues like that, and the NDP is a federated party. So if you're a member of one province, you're a member of the entire federal party. The other parties don't do it like that. And so it's actually a challenge for the NDP to find unity. The candidates themselves have expressed a lot of collegiality. The only real acrimony that we've seen in this race, quite frankly, has been, Rob Ashton taking a few shots at Avi Lewis, talking about how he thinks that Avi is divisive for exactly the reasons that I've mentioned, because he takes a harder line on environmental climate targets, on not developing fossil fuels. And he's been criticized by Heather McPherson for that as well. And so you see how, depending on who wins, the identity of this party is going to continue to be shaped going forward. I'm looking at my team. I don't think I have one ear, listening behind us at what's going on. We're still not quite at an announcement just yet, but we're getting really close to it. I should tell you who some of our guests are going to be as soon as that announcement is made. We're going to have Naomi Klein standing right here next to me after the announcement is made. We've got Matthew Green, who we actually interviewed, the former MP from Hamilton Centre. We did a great interview with him for The Breach because we had an interview about the renewal project that he's been embarking on himself, and Peter Julian and others trying to figure out what went wrong in the last election with the NDP and bring people back into the fold. Leah Gazan, who's also from Winnipeg Centre, this is her riding that we're in today. We interviewed her, and she's going to be back here shortly. Elle Jones, I can see Elle Jones is just off stage here. Elle Jones is going to be joining us, one of our homies at The Breach. And so we've got a great lineup of people. We'll see who else that we can bring in here as the announcement is made, after the announcement is made. This would be a good time for me to remind you, listening, all of you, that you need to like this broadcast, and you need to share this broadcast right now if you're watching or listening. We have never done this before at The Breach. We are live at this convention. It has been so exciting and so rewarding and fruitful to be here. We've had some incredible conversations, done interviews. We did streeters on Friday, right? Watching delegates come in and getting their feelings, just checking the vibes of what they were excited for, what they were hoping was going to be the direction of the party after today. And so we're really, really excited to be here with the team bringing this to you. And we want you to share this stream. We want to get hundreds and then thousands of people in here watching. We are off to a great start already. So you can become a member also, by the way, of The Breach. You can just subscribe to our newsletter. It is free. And we want to see all of you following us, not just today, but in the future. And it's such a great privilege that we've had to be in here in Winnipeg and speaking to people live, running into people who we didn't know we were going to be seeing and talking to. We did some interviews with all of the candidates yesterday. We were not able to get Heather McPherson. She was quite tied up yesterday, and we tried to coordinate with her team. You can see those interviews that we have done on our socials and on our website. But, some of the things that we've been hearing, I mean, certainly Heather's message, Heather McPherson from Edmonton, her message has been one, I think, of, look, I'm a winner. I have the track record. I'm the only person in this race who is a member of parliament. I have the experience to get things done. I'll be ready to go on day one, is Heather McPherson's argument. And that's important in the sense that all the other 4 leadership candidates are not elected into the House of Commons right now. And so they would have to embark on the process after winning today of trying to identify a seat where they could reasonably win and then contest a by-election in the future. I would be surprised if the new leader of the NDP waited all the way until we have a next election. We do not know when that next election is going to be, but we have an idea. There are going to be 3 by-elections in this country on April 13th, 2 in Toronto area and 1 in Terrebonne in Quebec. And the anticipation of those 3 by-elections is that they will tip the balance of the House of Commons in favor of the Liberal government and Mark Carney. Sorry, I'm just getting a little bit of a cue here about what's about to happen. But if there is a leadership, or if there is a majority government, then I don't think we expect to see another election for maybe 2 or 3 years in this country. And that's why who wins today matters in terms of having a seat. Heather McPherson would be in the House of Commons challenging every day. The rest of the candidates would be out searching for a riding that they could conceivably run in and win so that they could be in the House of Commons. And you're going to hear the mainstream media talk about that narrative a lot if the winner today is somebody that does not have a seat. So that's one of the many storylines that are unfolding out here. One other thing I want to mention while we have some time too is that I went to the convention in 2011 for the NDP, and I was younger then, and there were not as many young people, nearly I would say from my memory, as I have seen here. And I have spoken to a lot of young people when we were doing our streeters. We noticed that there were a lot of young folks, and I've heard other people noting that there is a significant increase, it seems, in youth participation at this convention live. I don't know how that translates in terms of the entire country, but certainly here we have heard from a lot more young people who are very excited. I've also noticed an urban flavor to a lot of the delegates that we have spoken to. A lot of people that we've spoken to are from here in Winnipeg, or they're from Ottawa, or they're from Vancouver or Toronto. A lot of urban folks. And so that's an interesting thing that we're going to be looking at for the party as well. I mean, we're here in Winnipeg Centre where Leah Gazan has a seat. Is this party going to be an urban party for the moment going forward, or are they going to rebuild their strength in suburban and rural areas, and how are they going to do that? So that's another storyline of what we're going to be watching and looking for. I remember talking to my team and saying I wasn't sure if they were going to be on time this morning for the announcement. These kinds of conventions are notoriously late in their running behind. They seem to be doing pretty well, to be fair to them. An operation like this, a convention like this, is a lot to organize and put forward. But reasonably speaking, I think we are close to being on time right now. But this is just building up the excitement of what we're about to see. I can tell you that there's been tremendous excitement. We actually hosted a little get-together with the Breach last night at the Yellow Dog, so we've got to shout them out while we're on stream. The Yellow Dog, a fantastic local spot here in town. They hosted us. We had more people come through than there was space at the tavern, and people actually waited outside for the opportunity to come in and join us. It was wonderful. We played some games. We had a little Breach bingo. We gave away some tote bags. We met our community of viewers and supporters who are out here in Winnipeg, who are part of the NDP, who are in town, and it was really wonderful and warming. And we still made it here on time this morning to bring this broadcast to you. So shout out to everybody who joined us yesterday and who's been part of our coverage. We've had a lot of people who they didn't know we were going to pull them in to do interviews and have these conversations. And people have been really good sports about wanting to join us and help enrich our coverage. It's getting a lot louder behind me. I dare not turn around too much, but I think that you can hear the chants going on. The moment is definitely drawing near, I think. We're getting close to the time when the party president is going to come up on stage, and we're going to find out who the next leader of this party is going to be. We've been asking, it's Don Davies who's still speaking interim leader of the party for the last year. He's still on stage speaking behind me. One question that's been being asked a lot has been the leadership candidates, the 5 of them, are they going to be running in the next opportunity, in the next election for the New Democratic Party if they don't win today's race? And what I've been hearing is that absolutely yes from, well, certainly Avi Lewis, certainly Rob Ashton, and Tenille Johnston have also all confirmed that if they don't win, that they are still planning to run for the party in the future. Heather McPherson is already a member of parliament, so it's a little bit of a different story for her. She has a seat. We expect that she would want to maintain her seat if she doesn't win unless something changes. And Tony McQuail hasn't necessarily indicated that he would run again for the NDP in the future, but it's absolutely possible. So that's going to be interesting. I think Tenille Johnston, from Campbell River, BC, she's a city councillor out there. She's the first Indigenous woman to be on a federal ticket for a political party, so that's been a milestone in history that's been made. She has impressed a lot of people. Tenille Johnston is the youngest person who's part of this race. She's brought a lot of energy, and I think people are really excited about the idea of her continuing to run and to be a firebrand and an upcoming leader for this party. Rob Ashton certainly has injected a lot of enthusiasm and energy. He has a fire in the belly kind of spirit. He's very focused on talking about the working class. And Rob Ashton also was very candid about the idea that he thinks that the NDP needs to pull back conservatives, or people who voted conservative recently anyway, but who he believes are really their home is with the NDP, and that they've kind of lost faith recently. And the party needs to do something in order to draw those people back. And so he's really made that pitch more explicitly, I would say, than anybody else. It looks like we're about to go to CPAC. Yeah, so we're getting close to the moment, folks. We are going to switch over. We've got the Chief Electoral Officer who's here. I don't know if you can now see the screen, but we're going to put this on screen now. You'll still be able to hear my voice for a moment. You can see it's gotten very quiet in the hall. I feel like,
8 months ago, the Federal Council of the NDP put together a set of rules.
The party is on stage, and everybody's excited because this is the moment that we have been waiting for. So I'm going to listen and keep one ear over as he stays on stage. He's speaking in English and French right now and summarizing the campaign, obviously talking about the enthusiasm and the energy that's been brought to the convention this weekend. Martin mentioned that the party is now at about 100,000 members. They've been reduced. They've been knocked down to where they were before the last election campaign. There is a lot of rebuilding to be done in this party, but there's also a lot of excitement. So, the party is going to have a huge challenge after this. After what happens today, after all of the excitement and the energy that's been in this room, the hard work is actually going to begin. The hard work of figuring out who's the staff of the leader, who they're going to be. I know that sounds maybe like a little bit of a boring or trivial issue, but of course, a party is not one person. It's not a leader. Who do you keep around you? Who are the people who are going to be there informing your decisions? How are you going to put that team together? How are you going to structure your team so that it reflects the diversity of Canada, the regional diversity? The NDP only has one seat in Quebec. They have one seat east of where I'm standing right now in Winnipeg, and it's Alexandre Boulris of the Quebec caucus, and Alexandra Boulerice has been rumored to be getting ready to make a switch, to make a leap from federal politics and the NDP to a party in Quebec called Québec Solidaire. So it looks like the moment is coming. Here we go. We're going to switch over.
That I see in this convention and throughout this campaign in every electoral district of this country. So, here are the results of the first round of balloting. Voici les résultats du premier tour de scrutin.
Here are the results of the first round of balloting.
Cast was 70,934 votes. Le nombre de votes total.
The total number of cast ballots was 70,934.
Il y a eu 4 votes.
There were 4 spoiled ballots.
Valid votes cast of 70,930. Le nombre de votes valides.
The number of valid votes amounted to 70,930. The number of required votes to be elected as leader was 35,466.
35,466 votes. And now for the results. Tony McQuail, 945 votes. 945 votes.
945 votes for Tony McQuail.
Rob Ashton, 4,180.
4,193 votes.
Tennille Johnston, 5,159 votes. 5,159 votes.
Tennille Johnston, 5,159 votes.
20,899 votes. 20,800.
20,899 votes.
Avi Lewis, 39,734 votes.
Avi Lewis is the new leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada. It's just been announced. We just heard the totals being read over. About 39,000 votes for Avi Lewis. He needed about 35 to win. So a decisive first ballot victory for Avi Lewis. My math is bad, but we're going to learn probably somewhere between the range of 55 to 60%, which interestingly enough is exactly in the range of what his party was forecasting. They thought this was going to be a first ballot blowout, and they were correct. Their internal numbers, all of their research seemed to be correct. And at this moment, Avi Lewis is making his way up to that stage. You see him climbing the steps right now. We're going to go live for the first time to the new leader of the Federal New Democratic Party, Avi Lewis. Here he is coming up on stage. Let's listen in.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Folks, this is a tremendous result, but even more important than the results of this leadership vote is the unity in our party. To that end, in my first act as leader, I want to invite our heroic caucus, my wonderful fellow candidates, and the labor leaders representing millions of workers who are the heart, soul, past, and future of our party to all join me on stage. There may even be a premier in the House.
I mean, like, in terms of, like...
Let me start by thanking the greatest campaign team ever, led by campaign manager Savannah Wilson and powered by an extraordinary group of young people who have changed this convention. These young folks changed this party and will go on to change politics in Canada. Come on, everybody, get on stage. Savannah, Naomi. I'm going to get started. Friends, if it isn't already obvious, we are building a new foundation for our party, and we are ready to come roaring back on the Canadian political stage. After 7 months of campaigning across this country and speaking to thousands upon thousands of Canadians, here's one thing I know for sure, and I want to say it out loud. Canada, mark your calendar. The NDP comeback starts now. Et au Québec aussi,
in Quebec as well, please mark this date in your calendar. The NDP comeback starts now.
In the lineup featured in this race, 4 other candidates, deep New Democrats, making a unique and powerful contribution. To Neil, you're a sensation and a rising star. You've redefined what politics in our party can look like: funny, honest, and rooted in Indigenous ways. Tony, you've made sure that we never forget the importance of changing our undemocratic first-past-the-post system. Thank you for that. Rob, my brother, you are the real deal, and I can't wait to see you walk into Parliament in your work boots. Workers will always be at the heart of the NDP, the one and only original Workers' Party. And Heather, you know how to win. You help others win, and you get things done in Ottawa. Yeah. Your leadership in the House of Commons, denouncing the genocide in Gaza, has been profoundly important to us all. The NDP family is bursting with talent. Premier Canoe, you're just a natural-born political powerhouse, and wow, are we lucky to be doing this in Manitoba. Thank you for providing such a welcoming home to all of us at this convention. And on a personal note, Wob, our family's friendship spanning 2 generations means the world to me. Of course, I look forward to connecting with Premier Eby when I'm back in BC and continuing a conversation with other provincial leaders, the premiers in waiting across the country. Elsewhere in Canada, this party is united in our commitment to working people. And no, we will not always agree on every single issue. But here's the thing. Our debates are another sign that our party is back and our tent is growing. It's big enough to hold some differences of opinion within it. The NDP comeback has arrived just in time. Our party has never been more needed. Friends, Canadians are living on the edge. We're under economic attack from the US. while Donald Trump stomps around the globe, grabbing foreign leaders and oil fields and starting wars, he has no idea how to stop. And at the kitchen table in Canada, there's an even bigger crisis. The everyday emergency of just trying to get by in an impossible economy. Whether you're on a single salary, hustling with multiple gig jobs, or taking care of loved ones, working hard no longer earns you a living. Look, I know every politician says, yeah, it is a shame. And I know every politician says they feel your pain, and they claim to be outraged by the sky-high price of everything. But what they won't talk about is why. An economy that's rigged for the rich, leaving the vast majority of us behind. Écoutez.
Please listen. I know that all politicians pretend that they understand your disarray and say that they're outraged by those exorbitant prices, but they will never tell you the reason why, which is an economy that is rigged for the wealthy and that abandons the vast majority of us.
What I really won't talk about is who. A tiny group of billionaires that control every part of our economy, enabled by their friends among both liberals and conservatives. They'll blame Trump. They'll blame immigrants. They'll blame indigenous land rights. They'll blame anyone but the CEOs, the corner office class to whom they feel accountable. Only the NDP will tell the truth. The cost of living emergency is driven by the extreme wealth and power in the hands of the 1%.
Six huge banks who have astronomical profits, 50 fossil fuel companies who are enjoying a super wave of huge profits thanks to this illegal war.
And price gouge and gorge on profits. They fixed the price of bread for 15 years, for heaven's sake. 3 telecoms corporations with mobile data rates that can cost 1,000 times what people pay in Finland, and the worst customer service on earth. Seriously, you can watch your best years drain away as you wait on hold just to make some small change to your cell phone plan. And let's not forget the tech oligarchs and their global digital empires, spying on us from every device, jamming generative AI into every platform. This is more than a rigged economy. It's a war on working people. And it's why you're in shock at the grocery checkout, in tears looking at your bills at the end of the month. It's because the wealth of this country is being hoovered up by a corporate elite who are extracting it from you every single day. It's immoral, it's unreasonable, it's un-Canadian, and we cannot let it stand. Friends, we are also at a crossroads in our history, in our world, with what remains of the international order being torn to shreds by Donald Trump. In this moment of intense uncertainty, our country needs a vision to guide the path we take, one that makes us safer and more secure, one shaped by values shared by most Canadians: fairness, compassion, equality, international solidarity, and love for the natural world.
In this period of uncertainty, we deserve a vision that will highlight the way to undertake, a vision that will be shaped by the values of French speakers and Quebecois: equity, compassion, equality, international solidarity, and a love for the natural world.
Not where we're headed now. The Prime Minister is very popular at the moment. He's a smart guy, and most Canadians still want to give him the benefit of the doubt. That's fair. But I think when you connect the dots, his moves do not add up to the vision that Canadians truly want and deserve in this perilous moment. $500 billion in a decade for weapons to make Canada a major arms exporter in a war-torn world. slashing our cherished public services, sweeping aside Indigenous rights, full steam ahead, no regulations on AI, and pipelines. In the last federal election, Canadians voted to say no to Trump and Trumpism. What they're getting instead is our government following the U.S. into a future of wars, fossil fuels, austerity, and job-killing generative AI. Our NDP has a different offer for this country. Our plan is to Trump-proof the economy by investing massively in Canadian economic independence, using the unmatched power of public ownership to ensure the fundamentals of a good life. A network of public providers for food, phones, and internet. A public housing developer and public construction companies to build millions of non-market homes. A 21st century electrical grid, an EV bus revolution, and a heat pump in every home, built with Canadian steel, creating tens of thousands of unionized jobs. Investing in the care economy as true nation building. The education, health care, elder care, and child care that holds our social fabric together. And finishing Tommy's dream. Eyes, teeth, mental health, medicine. They are all part of your health. They have to all be part of our universal public health care system. NDP, 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 NDP. If we want Canadians to feel more secure, then we have to invest in our security. And we can. Now
I would like to speak to Quebec's people directly. And maybe my French is not perfect, not quite there, but I want to tell you the story of the struggles in Quebec is well recognized and understood within our party. Quebecers are hungry for real progressive solutions. They want boldness, audacity, public options for cell phones, for food, for housing. They don't want dirty pipelines, not here, not anywhere else. And they want solidarity rather than blaming the more vulnerable. I want this NDP to be your home. We will build this movement together and come back on the political scene in Quebec in great strength, coming on strong. Yes, that's right. We are coming back. Everybody, we are coming back.
we can already hear the howls from the establishment. But how will you pay for all this? Well, let's remind them that this country is awash in wealth. We can have nice things. Banks made $70 billion in profits last year alone. Oil companies are expecting a new windfall in the tens of billions. Grocery baron Gale and Weston alone is worth $20 billion. It is time, far past time, to properly tax the corporations and billionaires that have been riding a tidal wave of profits, while the 99% have been suffering and struggling, and use that money to directly improve the lives of Canadians. The money is there. The money is there, my friends. We need a government with the courage to go and get it for all of us. And we need a government that doesn't just talk about Canadian values on the world stage. We need one that acts with moral clarity when it matters. Yes. When missiles are falling on schools and hospitals. When Israel commits a genocide in Gaza, we call it by its name and we do everything in our power to bring it to an end. When the US and Israel start an illegal and reprehensible war against Iran that sets the world on fire, we say Canada should have absolutely no role in it whatsoever. Folks, for me personally, it is humbling to pick up the mantle of leadership from the long line of NDP leaders before me. My grandfather, David Lewis, who took over from Tommy Douglas, gave his life to the CCF and then the NDP. David worked tirelessly for the party from the 1930s until the 1970s. And then he was a pundit briefly afterwards, very briefly. And friends, a lot of you know that my dad, Stephen Lewis, is not doing too well. But he is still with us and hanging on to see the next chapter of our movement. Ever the political fanatic, Dad has demanded daily updates about our organizing delivered to his hospital bed, a veritable IV drip of campaign data. At age 88, he is more passionate about the promise of democratic socialism than he has ever been in his life. But he told me something kind of heartbreaking that David, his father, said to him once. David said, "Son, not in my lifetime, but maybe in yours." And recently my dad told me the same thing. Not in my lifetime, maybe in yours. Well, Dad, I refuse to tell that to my kid. We cannot wait another generation. We've got to start winning now. We know we can live in a country built on a foundation of care and connection, where you don't have to fight every day just for the basics, where hard work earns you a living, and if you can't work, you're not abandoned. And where our kids know we are doing everything we can to protect the air and water and their right to a livable future. That is why the NDP is coming back, because we know that a thriving world is possible and we know who is standing in our way. And there are way more of us than there are of them. We just have to find each other. And that's what we've started on this campaign. I want to thank again my incredible team, every single volunteer, donor, and voter who has powered this history-making movement over the past 7 months. You have flung open the doors to this party. Your energy and passion is the fuel for all the work ahead. And it's not going to stop just because the campaign is over. Organizing can no longer be something we do when the writ drops. It's year-round work, with the NDP fighting alongside labor movements, fighting alongside social movements, showing up where we are needed, part of a common front of decent Canadians. The NDP will start winning again because we will become that beacon to the 99%. Illuminating the darkening sky of these terrifying times with the energizing light of collective struggle. This is about all of us coming together to find our place and our power in the thrilling work of building a shared future, a government that works for the many, not the money. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Let's get to work. Thank you.
there you have it, folks. That was the first address of Avi Lewis as new leader of the federal New Democratic Party. I took some notes on everything that he said. He was insistent at the beginning on bringing back everyone on stage, all of the candidates that ran against him. So he brought everybody up on stage and their teams. He really wanted to, I think, show unity and demonstrate that whatever wounds, whatever battle scars of this campaign might have landed on himself and the others, that now is the time to get back together and to keep on going. So that was the first act that he did as the new leader. He brought up his wife, Naomi Klein, and we're going to be hearing from her shortly. He talked about his family. He talked about his grandfather, David Lewis, who's a former leader of the party after Tommy Douglas. He talked about his own father, politician Stephen Lewis, who's in hospital right now. And he had a quite touching moment there where he said that his dad has not been doing well recently, and that there's been a kind of message passed on over the generations where David Lewis, his grandfather, said to Stephen Lewis, his father, you know, maybe not in my time, but hopefully in yours. And that's the same thing that his father, Stephen Lewis, said to him recently from hospital was not in my lifetime, but maybe in yours. And then Avi Lewis said, I don't want to have to repeat that message to my children. So definitely talking about the urgency of the moment, talking about the need for this party to recoup now, to start getting wins and electoral results now, to advance their platform, to advance the kind of agenda that Avi Lewis has been talking about, a decidedly left populist and socialist agenda, pushing the NDP to fight for who he calls the 99% versus the 1%. You heard that in the Bernie Sanders campaign in the United States, of course, going back to 2016, and it's been a popular phrase and slogan for left movements all around the Western world. Avi Lewis repeating that throughout this campaign, talking about the responsibilities that the NDP has to lift up people who they say are being left behind by the Carney government. He mentioned Mark Carney by name in the speech. He gave him a compliment by saying, you know, Mark Carney is a smart guy, and he's somebody who, you know, the Canadian public seems to want to give the benefit of the doubt for now. But Avi Lewis also saying about Mark Carney, you know, that he is too close to Trump, that he's followed Trump when it comes to rewarding billionaires, boosting military spending, that he hasn't condemned Trump's escapades starting this war in Iran recently. And so Avi Lewis actually trying to frame Mark Carney, as we've heard much of the time, as being part of like a second conservative party. And there's been a lot of conversation about that and about how there's just like lots and lots of room in the left part of the political spectrum in this country right now for a more left populist, left socialist kind of agenda like Avi Lewis has been pushing. He said that the NDP's political comeback starts today. He spoke a little bit in French. Avi Lewis's French and the French of all of the candidates in this race has been a huge, huge talking point because quite frankly, they were all very weak with their French. Avi Lewis, you can tell he's been working on it a little bit. He's been okay reading in the French language, but being able to speak off the cuff, being able to speak just comfortably has been a big challenge for him. And so that's going to have to be something that he's going to improve. We see people breaking out right now. The speech is over, and so people are kind of pouring out and celebrating. There's lots of hugs and lots of joyfulness. We were able to have Leah Gazan, I've mentioned Leah, she's the MP for Winnipeg Centre here where we are right now. She joined us on the Breach Show earlier to talk about the race, to set things up. She's been an Avi Lewis supporter, and I'm going to bring her in right now. Leah, why don't you come in and join me on this side right over here?
Okay.
Yeah, just join me.
Hello, Desmond. How are you?
I want to know how you're doing.
I'm doing great. I think it's very clear we have thousands of people here in Manitoba who are sharing hope in a progressive vision that brings everybody along.
The result was about what we were hearing from the party. They expected to win on the first ballot. They expected to win decisively with 55 to 60% of the vote. I understand the total is about 57% of the vote. I imagine you're not surprised by this result.
Well, look, first I want to lift up all the candidates. They ran dynamic campaigns, brought forward amazing ideas, centered and focused on a different agenda, but a similar agenda. And I'm looking forward to working with all of the leadership candidates as we move forward. It's no surprise I endorsed our new leader, Avi Lewis. He is strong, he's brilliant, he's dynamic, and he is ready to unite this party and bring us forward in a good way.
He mentioned unity. He brought everybody up on stage with him who ran in this race. He insisted on them and their teams sharing that moment with him at the outset of his win. How important do you think that was?
Well, I think it's critical because we're not against each other. We're part of the same team, a team of New Democrats that are fighting for a better world for all people.
Why do you think he was able to win on this first ballot? Why do you think he was able to pull so decisively away? You know, I'm sure Heather McPherson's team is going to be disappointed with their result. How do you think he was able to differentiate himself?
Well, first of all, I have had the privilege and honor to work with Heather. We were elected at the same time. They ran an absolutely dynamic campaign. Avi is grounded in movements. He was able to sell memberships to first-time New Democrats. He inspired, young people to get involved in politics, young people who feel so left out of the political discourse because they have been left behind. Affordable housing, rent geared to income, guaranteed livable basic income, tuition debt that is leaving so many on the margins. So he is able to do that, and he is connected from movement to movement and to movement. And I think we saw that today.
Something that you and I talked about on the Breach Show a few weeks back, and something that I think is going to be an interesting theme now, is that, of course, Avi Lewis comes into this now as leader. He doesn't have a seat. And he's been being asked about that in the last week, and he has even suggested that that might not be the first thing that he worries about, that he has other priorities. So if it's not going to be focused right now on trying to find a place to run, what do you think his focus ought to be instead?
Well, first, I want to be clear. Jack Layton didn't have a seat, okay? Jagmeet didn't have a seat. Okay, this is not the first leader that hasn't had a seat. I trust in his leadership. He is focused on the ground. He understands that the movement is bigger than him. It's about people joining together, mobilizing the masses so that we can elect more New Democrats to fight against this growing right that's being offered up by the Carney government.
One more for you, Leah. We're here in Winnipeg. Wab Kinew has been a feature of this convention. He's obviously a superstar. He's the most popular premier in this country. People are suggesting that there might be some divisions and some acrimony even between Avi Lewis and some of the Western leaders like Wab Kinew. What are your thoughts on what this is going to look like going forward?
I just saw my premier of Manitoba embracing Avi hand in solidarity. I know both leaders. I know that they understand that sometimes you have differences. Even for myself, we have differences. Sometimes we sit down, we hash it out. That is called democracy. That is called finding the best solutions for everybody. I'm proud of our Premier, Wab Kinew, and I'm proud of our federal leader, Avi Lewis. We just need to get to work.
The conversation will continue. Leah, thank you for everything you've given us.
Thank you, Desmond. We love you.
Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, that's Leah Gazan, the MP for Winnipeg Centre here. I'm sorry, I'm tripping over my words. Leah just mentioned something that I think is quite important, which is, she talked about how she sees the party unifying under Avi Lewis, and that she doesn't think that there's going to be any acrimony between him and the Western leaders like Wab Kinew. That he actually mentioned it in his own speech. Avi Lewis said that the party is big enough to contain disagreements between members, between leaders. And so that's the idea, I guess, is that they're going to acknowledge that there are disagreements politically within this party. They're going to not run from them is the message that we seem to be getting, and that they're going to try and see how they work those differences out, that every party politically has differences. So that's been the tack that the NDP is taking. And we're going to see how that works out for them, because it is absolutely a challenge. I was mentioning earlier that we're in Winnipeg, and east of where we are today, the NDP has one federal seat, and that belongs to Alexandra Boulerice, who is rumored to be any time now moving over to Quebec Solidaire, the provincial progressive party. So they're going to lose another MP potentially, be knocked down to only 5. And not have anybody representing them east of Manitoba. So we're going to see how that plays out. Another person who we've been really eager to talk to is here. You might know her as an author, political commentator, a brilliant researcher, and activist. Naomi Klein is all of those things. She is also the wife, the partner of Avi Lewis, and she's here to join us. Why don't you come in? It's great to see you. You can stand right there and just turn and face me. That's great. Naomi Klein, welcome. I was mentioning that we know you as a researcher, an activist, a brilliant journalist for many, many decades. Today, I imagine that there's some different things that we want to talk to you about as the partner of the man who just took over the leadership of the NDP. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, overwhelmed and so grateful. This has been such a this campaign's just been so positive, and it's just grown and grown, and it has felt more like a movement than a campaign, which all the best political election campaigns do. I've been lucky enough to be have been part of Bernie's campaign in 2020 and done some work for Zoran Mamdani, and these moments are rare. In left history. We often aren't able to go all the way, and so we really have to savor them. And so, yeah, I feel great. I feel so proud of Avi. I think he just gave a dynamite speech. I think it's a complex political territory that he's navigating. But there's really a feeling that he's not doing it alone, that this is something that was built by a huge and amazing team that's just growing all the time. Yeah.
You mentioned Bernie Sanders in the United States of America, and definitely the similarities in messaging between a movement and a campaign like that and this one are quite clear, particularly drawing the distinction between the 99% of people and the billionaire class who have increasing control every day in our lives. I don't think there's any doubt about that. That movement did catch fire for a while in the United States, and there was a time when it looked like Bernie Sanders was going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. He wasn't quite able to make it, but he did build a real grassroots movement.
Yeah. And a lot of us who were part of that campaign thought that he could have defeated Trump precisely because so many working class people are going over to these right-wing so-called populists who are willing to talk about the pain of their lives, right? Who really recognize that the cost of living, is unbearable, that the system feels really rigged, and they echo all of that. But as Avi just said in that speech, what they won't say, right, is that it's actually capitalism, it's a system of corporations and governments working together to rig it. It's working for some people, right? And so we really haven't had that for a long time, of politicians who are really able to name the system itself. And I honestly think it's the only way we can bring people back. It's not going to be everyone. There are people who, are part of that, far-right movement because they're racist, and, that's why they're there. A lot of people, and it's increasingly becoming a diverse movement, right? It's I often quote Steve Bannon talking about the populist international, right? Or it's getting more and more diverse, right? The more that these corporate centrist parties act like everything's okay, right? So it's critical that there be a true left alternative and that's willing to name the system, that is willing to talk about the fact that it doesn't affect everybody equally by any means. And I think we're moving towards that in Canada. I think this is a breakthrough for us, and we haven't had it for a long time, and we'll see. I mean, I hope that Avi's able to bring some people from the Conservative Party, as well as the Liberal Party, who are NDP voters but went Liberal in the last election because they were afraid of Trump.
I mean, that's going to be a big part of the challenge for the NDP going forward now. Public ownership of grocery stores, public ownership of banks, public ownership of goods that the public needs. A huge part of this now successful leadership campaign that's going to be pitched to the Canadian public. There is, I think, a very common line of skepticism about public ownership. The faith in government is at a point in this country and in the Western world where people don't know if they can look to government for big solutions. How is he going to sell these big transformative ideas that he's pitched in this leadership race?
I think one of the things that that we can learn from Zoran Mamdani is he has this sort of he moonlights as a history professor. Like he sees part of his work, whether he was campaigning or now that he's mayor, is actually educating people about radical history, because we don't learn it in school. It's not part of our traditional education. So people in Canada generally don't know the history of public ownership in Canada, right? Which during the Second World War, so many crown corporations were created because it was a moment that the market could not address. And we are in all of these sort of so-called market failures. The market is happy to fail, right? Because that just means, it just means that people will fall. And we are in this time where we've all been kind of accustomed to mass death. And I think the genocide in Gaza, one of the roles that it played was sort of like kind of testing how much will people put up with, right? How much can people get used to, right? During COVID, there was this kind of war about like, are we going to protect people, right? Are we going to have an attitude that everybody deserves to live through this? Or can we just kind of triage here, right? And then I think what we saw with Gaza, and this is why, Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia, said that the poor of the world see their future in Gaza, right? Is that what we saw from liberal elites around the world, including in Canada, was a chilling willingness to live with mass death, to live with genocide. And so that's what market failure means in this moment. I call it end times fascism. I think that that's what we're up against. And only a willingness to tell the truth can face that. And I think there's such a deep desire for truth-telling right now, and because our centrists and liberals have failed so spectacularly, we see people slipping into conspiracy land in all kinds of ways, right? All these right-wing grifters stepping up. Oh, suddenly they care about genocide, right? Because there's energy there, because there's so much silence there, right? So that's my hope for Avi's leadership. I think he can do that. I think he has a long track record as a communicator, right? Working in media, thinking about how do you distill ideas down to their essence on television, and also debate. Avi used to host a debate show 4 nights a week. It was the hardest time in our lives because he was never ever home. But one of the things I think we learned in that debate format was that we perform best when we actually have to fight for our ideas, right? Like, it's easy to kind of get mushy when no one's challenging us. So there's going to be a lot of debate, including inside the NDP. Canada is this society where, like, oh my God, people are disagreeing. The world is ending. We cannot, there's so much panic in media culture when, it's treated as a crisis. It's politics. We have disagreements. When you have a clear vision, people will disagree. It's okay. That's how democracy should function. People should be able to air out their ideas. So now that there is somebody out there going like, I believe in something, okay? I believe that we are late to the climate crisis. We've been talking about this for decades, and now we are out of time. We need to transition off of fossil fuels. And it's his conviction that they're afraid of, right? Because everyone says it, but they know he means it. And so there'll be some freakouts. Everyone stay calm. We're going to get through this. It's a good sign. It means that we're standing for something.
Finally, I want to ask you about what is perceived to be an opportunity right now, particularly on the international scene. We're witnessing Trump's debacle in Iran, going there without any reason, vision, plan, without the backing of most of the international community.
Well, they don't believe in international law. When they abducted Maduro, there was a coordinated messaging campaign on the right to say that international law is fake. And we heard it in symphony. You know, we heard a chorus of it. You know, all the way from Stephen Miller and Donald Trump, you know, down to like pundits like Joe Walsh, right? And so what, you know, and then you have Trump creating a parallel UN, so-called Board of Peace, right? So it is a very explicit campaign to destroy the whole international post-World War II infrastructure of humanitarian law, international humanitarian law, because they're afraid of it. They are afraid of it, and you can see it in the way they treat Francesca Albanese, in the way they have sanctioned the ICC judges that you know, have issued arrest warrants for crimes against humanity for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. And the day after Francesca Albanese put out her Economy of Genocide report that named the tech companies, they slapped her with sanctions. I mean, Francesca Albanese can't book a hotel room right now. All these people, like, they've lost their Gmail. Like, and I think on the left, we have to really pay attention to this, because international humanitarian law has been such a failure. It's so weak, right? And it's so weak because of the lack of faith in it. It's only as strong as the moral force behind it and governments acting like it matters, right? But the fact that it's such a priority for these criminals to destroy every vestige of international law shows that actually this is something that needs to be defended, and we need to live up to the promise that has never been realized, because the system was always rigged with vetoes, exemptions. The Security Council meant that the UN was never the democracy. The Security Council vetoes meant that the UN was never the democracy that it was supposed to be. But I believe that we cannot give up on the promise of genuine universalism, which has never been a reality. But just because it's never been a reality doesn't mean we can afford to throw it out at the very moment when these criminals have such a top priority of destroying it. And that's another reason why I think it's really important that Avi has been elected NDP leader, because he's going to use the megaphone that comes with that to really be a voice for international law. Because, you know, people responded to Carney in the way that they did at Davos, because they kind of thought he was saying something he wasn't saying, right? Because it sort of sounded like, oh yeah, you know, we're gonna go our own way with middle countries, and people thought, oh, they're going to actually do ethical international law, but he actually just meant we're going to do a trade deal with Modi.
We could talk all afternoon. Just really quickly, you said that when you know, Avi was on Counterspin, your life was very different. I imagine it's going to be even more of a change for you now.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I've just been staying busy and not thinking about the future.
Well, enjoy the moment for right now, and thank you so much for joining us today, Naomi. Nice to see you.
Great to see you.
Take care. That's Naomi Klein, of course, the renowned activist, author, journalist, filmmaker, the partner of Avi Lewis, celebrating and breaking down and analyzing for us what this moment means and what opportunities there are for him now as leader of the NDP. We're going to keep it rolling and bring in our next guest. Brother Green, come on in here. Matthew Green, the former New Democrat MP for Hamilton Centre, one of the spearheaders of the NDP renewal project that was trying to find out what happened in the last campaign and carry things forward into the future for the party. You're blinding me with your jersey. I don't know what I did to you.
There are a few places where having a jersey like this is appropriate, so every couple of years, you know, this is where it's at. We're here today. You can feel the buzz, lots of excitement. You know, you spoke a little bit about the work on renewal. Our theory of change is that there requires, I think, necessarily a deep connection, a reconnection with our membership. And I think in some regards, some of the results may have demonstrated that the leadership campaign has done that in a significant way, and I'm very hopeful that they continue that process to rebuild the party.
You stayed out of this race. You didn't endorse anybody. You were focused on the renewal project. Now you have a new leader in Avi Lewis. What are your thoughts and impressions? You heard him give his speech. What are you thinking?
Lots of energy. This is a master communicator, somebody who really is comfortable in front of media, understands the moment. Politics, like life, are all about the moments, and we are witnessing a historic moment in the party. I think there's been a mandate for change in the direction, in a rejection of what the status quo has looked like in the past. And we're going to continue on with deliberative discussions about resolutions and things that our membership care deeply about, the things that motivate people to knock doors, to make phone calls, to donate. And our job while the leadership race was happening was connecting directly with members and having them dream bigger about how their role in the party would look like under a deeper democracy, a deliberative democracy, a direct democracy, and having engaged with thousands of people across the country, we came up with 26 resolutions. Unfortunately, in this particular convention, only one resolution was prioritized, but the ideas remain. And this is the beautiful thing about leadership, this is the beautiful thing about the NDP, is that we are a party of big ideas, and everybody in this room has a role to play in drawing out and painting out a more compelling future for Canada. And so our job now is to transfer that information to the leadership. It's the leadership's job to decide kind of how they want to interact with the rank and file membership. I believe that the mandate for change includes deepening democracy within the rank and file, within the electoral districts, being hyper-local, and having a system where the values of the party are reflected in our platform. They're reflected in our communication. They're reflected in the way that we treat one another, right? And so I think people are looking for congruency in leadership, and it's my hope that Avi's able to deliver that in a significant way early on so that people are excited to help this process to rebuild the party.
You're from Hamilton, of course. We're in Winnipeg right now. East of where we are standing, the New Democrats have one single elected member for the entire eastern part of the country. That's Alexandre Boulerice, who might be leaving himself to go to Quebec Solidaire. That's the rumor anyway. How are you going to start rebuilding tomorrow and next week and next month in the province of Ontario, a place where Avi Lewis has actually seemed to start building a quite significant membership base? A lot of his new support seemed to come from your province.
Well, the good news is we started almost the day after the last election. So it wasn't like we took time off and waited for a charismatic leader to come and save us in places like Hamilton or other regions that had representation that doesn't. Any successful NDP, federal NDP party must require a strategy in Ontario, one that engages people where they're at, one that recognizes the difference of urban, suburban, and rural splits, because Ontario is representative of very different lived experiences, but the core values of protecting our public services, helping to offset this astronomical inflation crisis and the profiteering that's happening, and back to the point about providing a space for people that feel like they belong, we need to be in a relationship with our membership, not in a transaction. So it's no longer good enough to come to New Democrats or Canadians only at election time. We have to bring them to the table right now and say, we know that things aren't getting better under the Liberals. We know that you're struggling right now provincially under the Conservative Doug Ford. The NDP is the only answer to those questions in Ontario, whether it be provincial or federally. We have to seize on that moment, and we have to seize on the abilities of a master communicator like Avi to be able to reach out to people who didn't consider themselves New Democrat before and bring them in so that we can have that kind of generational continuation of people who see their values and see their priorities reflected in the party. If we're tinkering around the edges of like Liberal light, it doesn't work. Ontario already has a Liberal Party. Our provincial counterparts in the prairies do not have provincial Liberals to speak of. Their politics are very different. But in Ontario, when you campaign provincially, you have to campaign against a strong Liberal wing too, which means we have to make a difference for Canadians, for people living in Ontario. We have to re-elect New Democrats because we know when more New Democrats are elected, people in Ontario and across the country are better served.
Your energy to continue organizing in this party is undoubted. Are we going to see you run again, Matthew Green?
Look, the job has changed, but the work stays the same. And I believe that everybody's needed, but no one person is necessary. And so I'm committed to the project. But I would also say that very few Canadians have an insight into the types of sacrifices that elected people make, regardless of the party.
And that's why I'm asking you.
The time away from your family and stuff. Look, I think that there are lots of incredible people in Hamilton Centre who could represent Hamilton Centre better than the Liberal tourist that we have right now who comes from Mississauga. Whether it's me or anybody else, I don't know, but I would say where I'm at right now in the labor movement, very proud member of ATU, supporting other unions where they're at with the skill set that I have. I feel confidently that it'll play a significant role within the party. Whether it's elected or not, I think only time will tell.
We look forward to hearing from you again in any capacity, Matthew.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew Green, former member of Parliament for Hamilton Centre, with his number 23 green jersey on, a orange green, I guess, today, repping the NDP as enthusiastic as he always is. And he's talked about renewal from the beginning of this campaign, and obviously thinks that Avi Lewis, who he called a master communicator, is going to be well positioned to be able to get out the messaging that needs to be put out in the country now to try and bring people back into the fold of the NDP. It's Desmond Cole. If you didn't know, we are live with The Breach in Winnipeg. The leadership convention has just elected Avi Lewis as the new leader of the party. We're getting reaction, we're getting feedback from many of the different guests here, some of whom we have been hearing from over the course of this campaign. Somebody we have not heard from over the course of this campaign, but who's been here, who was just put into an elected position in the executive as their new vice president, is Libby Davies, who's about to join us, a longtime NDP activist, anti-poverty advocate, and a former New Democrat MP in Vancouver East for nearly 2 decades. Come on in here, Libby. Come on in. Libby carried a left-wing torch with the party many years ago, even under leaders like Tom Mulcair. You're here now. We have a new leader. It's Avi Lewis. I haven't seen you in a really long time.
How are you? It's good to see you again.
It's wonderful to see you.
First, when you were running for City Council in Toronto many years ago.
2006, if you can believe it. 20 years this fall. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Congratulations on your election yesterday to the executive. And now, how are you feeling about the election of this new leader?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I mean, I think it was a lot of hard work. It was a wonderful campaign. And to see this good result today, a strong result, and to see Avi take the stage as our new leader with this great team of people around him, activists who worked really hard, it felt really good. It's one of those moments, where you think, okay, I got to savor this for the future. When it's going to get rough, you remember this moment.
Well, Naomi Klein said to me yesterday when I ran into her in the hall, that she's like, I'm hopeful, but I brace myself. Because she's like, sometimes you lose, and it's a terrible feeling to lose, and if you lose a lot, you get scared. Is this going to be our time? Is this going to be our opportunity? Avi Lewis has made the most of this opportunity, and a lot of people are looking to him now to renew a left, progressive, socialist vision for the NDP. How do you think he's going to be able to do that?
Well, it will take a lot of effort from a lot of people, and there are going to be many levels to this work. The first level of work, I think, is within the party itself. We had 4 other strong leadership candidates, and every leadership race, there are people who walk away with hard feelings and feel the pain of losing. And so I think the immediate task, and I know Niall as president and me as vice president and Kira as treasurer and the other folks on federal council, we've got to really build the health of our own party in terms of how we work together, we respect each other, and build up the grassroots and empower the members of the party. And this was such an important message from Avi during the campaign. So that's one level. But another level is, of course, out there in the public realm and getting out and a message. And I think his message today in his speech that was speaking to Canadians was a very powerful message. But I know, there's going to be many challenges. There will be people who try to put up a brick wall, including in the media, the corporate media, who will try to be divisive. And so I think when you say to me, what does it mean to work as we move forward, it means we have to be really smart about how we do our work. We have to be aware of what's going on around us. We have to be strategic. But the most important thing is to remember the base, right? The people who are part of this movement, right? And who want to come forward with this movement and grow it. If we always keep that and it grounds us, then I think we'll be okay. We'll be able to take on the naysayers. We'll be able to take on those sometimes formidable forces if we have that base and we have that sense of being together and united with compassion and solidarity with one another. That will keep us moving forward.
In his victory speech, Avi Lewis said that Mark Carney is a smart guy who the Canadians, most of them seem to be giving the benefit of the doubt for the moment. This is a tough climate. with everybody's orientation towards Donald Trump and the United States of America and the fear of, an annexation, obviously the trade war, how does a party that really suffered from that narrative in the last election say, no, we're the ones actually to take on Donald Trump and not the current administration?
Well, you won't do it in a day. We won't do that in a day, and we won't do it in a week or a month, maybe not even in a year. It is a process of building our strength to get that message out to people, because I believe, it's why I'm in this, is a lifelong struggle. I truly believe in my heart that people want to see a different alternative, right? Sometimes people feel trapped in a moment in terms of they're voting for something because of fear. We have to really change that frame, Desmond. We have to open up space, political space, for people to believe that they can actually vote for what they believe in, and that they can not just vote, they can be part of a participatory democracy, okay? And I think if we can get that across to people, that they don't have to put themselves in this little box because they're so fearful about what's going on around them, that we can make other choices that actually make us stronger. If we can get that across to people, we will grow, and we will be able to maneuver around the carnies and the bankers and the corporate folks, right? And show that the 99% are not only visible, but that we can gain power.
You've got your work cut out for you, and you're going to be a big part of this effort moving forward. It is wonderful to see you, Libby Davies. I wish you all the best, and thanks for giving us your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Libby Davies, the former New Democrat NP from Vancouver and a longtime party activist. Happy to be joined by so many different guests today. We've just been running into people as we've been seeing them here and inviting them to come on this broadcast with us. Some that we knew were going to be able to join us, and some that we just were fortunate enough to grab as time went on. One of those people is Jen Pedersen, who's going to be joining us just now, a senior policy advisor to Heather McPherson. And, so she was working hard on that campaign. Jen, I want you to get in here. And obviously a difficult result today, but we want to hear how you're feeling. Jen, how are you doing? It's very nice to see you. Thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm feeling okay. I'm tired. We're all tired now.
I know this isn't the result that you all were working towards, but what are you feeling about this moment and about the culmination of this months-long race?
Well, I want to say, first of all, congratulations to Avi and team, because this was a decisive victory, right? Like, it was an extraordinary amount of votes, really great organizing on their part. And so I think it's great that it's decisive, because that means that the leader has a really strong mandate. And what we're hearing on the floor here is unity from everybody, and we're all going to get together and work really hard to try and push those New Democrat policies and values forward.
He insisted on bringing up Heather and all of the other opponents in the race and bringing up their teams as a first act as being leader, I guess, to show that the party is going to be united going forward. Do you feel that?
I think that's super important, and I know that it has been a bit of a tense campaign here and there, but I think moving forward we're all going to be looking in the same direction and trying to figure out how we rebuild our party together, how we do that across all the different regions and all the different groups that we have in our party as well. So there's a strong challenge ahead, but I think we're all up for it.
Well, speaking of the West and of the different regions that are, part of this party and necessary for success going forward, Heather is in Alberta and has been a kind of a base in that province, while the rest of the party has struggled to make some inroads elsewhere. Heather has held it down and has really distinguished herself, talking about a lot of important international issues as well as domestic stuff. So what role do you imagine? I know we're just a few minutes out from the decision, but I imagine she's going to play a huge role going forward in this Avi-led party.
Well, I sure hope so. And Alberta New Democrats are very strong, very organized. I think the provincial party now has maybe like 30,000 members or something, so it's quite a large number of people. And they are a strong part of our federal party as well. And these folks are all very progressive. So we have to remember that they're also looking for a strong New Democratic Party on the federal level that's going to work with the provincial parties, but that's also going to push all those issues that are really important to folks, like the housing crisis, like climate change, like the cost of living. And so I think those are some of the issues that Heather is going to continue to push on inside the party, but also inside Parliament, and we'll do that also in conjunction with Avi. I think that's I think it's going to be a very busy season going forward, but everybody's ready to do the work.
A final question for you. Talk about what it has meant to be able to go around the country, to be able to meet people. I suppose that even though this wasn't the result that Heather wanted, there must be a sense that you did some good meeting people, rejuvenating, galvanizing, fundraising. How important has all that been to what happens next?
That is so important. I think what Heather says is, for a long time, a lot of New Democrats have felt like they maybe weren't consulted by the party. Maybe they weren't being heard. And Heather's position has always been, we need to also talk to our grassroots, but also expand our table to make sure that Canadians who hold those same values, like those same social democratic values, and maybe haven't identified before as New Democrats, realize they're probably New Democrats in terms of their values. And she's gone day in, day out to all kinds of smaller communities. She was in different towns, 4 or 5 towns a week during this tour over the last 10 months, talking to people at the kitchen table, talking to people, in the Legion. And everybody wants a renewed party. Everybody sees that the NDP is the solution to the 2 right-wing parties that we have right now in Parliament. And we have to build that party back up. And I think there's a lot of excitement out there to rebuild the party, but it is going to take an extraordinary amount of work and all hands on deck.
We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us this afternoon. Congratulations on a great campaign, and we'll see you going forward.
Thank you so much, Desmond.
All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Jen Peterson, senior policy person for Heather McPherson. Very gracious to come and give us some of her time in this moment. Heather McPherson, second place showing, obviously a disappointment for their camp, but a second place, nothing to scoff at. I know that they were expected to at least come second, of course, if not win. So obviously for them, perhaps this is a little bit of a bitter pill today, but trying to emphasize that unity, right? Trying to emphasize that this is not going to be an event that fractures a party that is already really struggling, but actually something that brings people together. Our next guest, we've been lining everybody up here for you, and I see her out of the corner of my eye. Our good friend at the breach, a poet, a professor, an activist, an anti-prison activist for many decades, a brilliant speaker, a brilliant thinker. My good homie, we're in her hometown, Elle Jones.
Well, you can't assign me a hometown, an ex-hometown.
Okay, well, a part-time hometown of Halifax, or of Winnipeg. See, I got Halifax on the brain. Elle, a really decisive victory for Avi Lewis. His supporters, of whom you have been wondering this race, they thought this is what was going to happen. How are you seeing this result?
I think it's good. I think one of the things that we need to resist in this moment is this idea that, Avi's going to come in and save everything, which is a discourse I don't think that's come from Avi, but even from, people on the left have sort of projected this idea that, people will elect Avi and then people will expect him to solve everything. And I think what we're going to see is, he's going to have a long road to go. But I believe in harm reduction. So, you get the harm reduction in the level of the party, and we continue to do our work on the streets and in community. So.
He's decidedly left of where this party has been, like decidedly left of Jagmeet Singh, definitely left of Tom Mulcair. There's a built-in skepticism. There's a built-in attack line from conservatives who are going to go like, this guy's a loony progressive, he's going to raise your taxes. So how does a populist movement like this, we saw it in the United States with Bernie, how do you push back against that?
Well, it's interesting because I was standing in the scrum when they were all interviewing Wab Kinew and hearing the questions being asked him were exactly these ridiculous narrative questions, right? In fact, I suppose I broke journalistic protocol and scoffed loudly at the point where the National Post reporter asked if the Epstein class wasn't an anti-Semitic slur. So this is the kind of narrative that just is built in these questions. Isn't Avi being radical? Isn't talking about billionaires harmful? Isn't this being divisive? So you already see that they've allied these, they've already mobilized these narratives, but I think everybody's used to that and familiar with that. The point of a populist movement is that it takes place from below, not from above. That's what makes it populist. So the job of the people is to continue doing what we are always doing and continue to do and have done, which is organize in our places of work, in our homes, in our communities, and hopefully have a more receptive NDP to that. So what helps is to at least feel that maybe you have an NDP that's not trying to squish that, but it's not, the party doesn't define what the left is, we define what the left is, the people define what the left is. Parties don't make change, people do.
You're wearing your keffiyeh. Obviously, you've been a huge advocate for Palestinian liberation for many, many years. I think that this is a huge opening for the party, not specifically Gaza and Palestine, but international stuff, foreign policy. Mark Carney has decided to build up our military to mainly mirror what Donald Trump wants to do and not push back against him. So how much of an opportunity do you think there is for a decidedly anti-war and a decidedly returning, Naomi Klein talked about returning to this belief in international law and international standards, which has been completely destroyed and which Mark Carney doesn't see. He seems to be kind of ambivalent, the world as it is rather than the world as we would like it to be.
Well, we're always told that the left is ponies and fairy dust, but what we actually see is the very people that call the left radical are radically out of step with people. So when they do polls, the majority of people support Palestine and do not support what Israel is doing. People across the political spectrum are opposed to the war in Iran. Right-wingers are opposed to that for other reasons, but so when we're seeing a building consensus against war, a building consensus against our money being sent for weapons, our money being sent to Israel, our money being sent to everything except, actually improving our quality of life, that actually has strong support among the people across the political spectrum. So one of the things that we can actually bow to is this idea that these are radical ideas. In fact, common sense, even conservative ideas, I would suggest, in the true meaning of conservatism, which is we shouldn't be wasting our money with no accountability. So I think we have the opportunity here to recognize that our government is completely out of step with the will of the people and the needs of people, and that there is a lot of will among people to end these things like endless war, endless attacks, endless violence, endless draining of our taxes while we can't get food, while we can't get daycare, while we can't put our kids through education. So I think we always have to believe, I think leftist politics is always about understanding in a clear-eyed way what the challenges are, but you always have to have that faith and belief that we can build a different world. You have to believe that, and you have to believe that people can fundamentally change. We have to believe that we can interrupt in these moments, that we do have the power to go up against the right, because they mobilize very well on populist issues, and we have to believe that we can insert ourselves too, and if we don't, we shouldn't be doing this work. So, to me, that's really important. So, I think this is a moment we can pause in moments of hope. I think that's important, as Robin Maynard always says too, and we all say celebrate the small victories. They don't have to be perfect victories. They don't have to be complete victories. Nobody expects one victory to be everything, but you take the victory and you build on it, and you expect challenges in the future, and you continue to do your work. So, I have one last analogy.
Well, I wanted to ask you a question, but please go ahead.
No, I was going to say we're going to get biblical on the breach for the first time ever, but you know what today is?
Today's Palm Sunday.
Okay, so Desmond, I know you were, raised as a good little church boy. It's ironic, right? Because I'm not going for the religious angle here. I'm going for the political angle that if we think about Palm Sunday, Jesus enters Jerusalem and the empire, the Roman Empire, is entering a different gate. The people cheer Jesus, and then what happens the next week?
Some bad stuff happens to Jesus. He meets an untimely end.
Right. So, it's actually a political analogy, right? That one week people will hail you as a leader and hold you up and uphold you. And the next week, those very same people will execute, torture, and kill you. And it's a remembrance to us of how public opinion changes, right? 1 minute you're hailed as a savior, the next minute you're downed as a traitor, the next minute you're resurrected, the next minute, right? So it shows us this is a political narrative about how leadership is and how, the people change, but it's also a narrative about how you keep going, right? You push through that. So I'm not here to I'm not being an evangelical here. I'm saying it's just a kind of ironic day in that sense, right? That it reminds us that, when we're chaired today, we have to keep doing the work because we know the knives are out tomorrow, right? We know our own people betray us. We know, that is what politics is. It's going to be a hard fight for Avi within an NDP that we already see the Alberta NDP coming out and, announcing basically the separatism from the party and saying, oh, you don't have, and then she's like, oh, remember, you don't have to have federal membership, right? That always happens. And the left is always the ones accused of being divisive, while, of course, the people that continue to do everything, punch left and push the left out, are always hailed as somehow the uniters. But we know that. So, again, I just think that we need in this moment to take everything we can get, you know what I mean? We're seeing genocide, we're seeing so much war, we see so much hopelessness and despair, and that's what they want from us, to get into despair, to believe we're powerless, to believe there's nothing we can do. And we always have to believe that we are powerful. Every win matters. Everything we can do, even if we don't agree with all of it, even if we disagree with lots of it, if it gets us something, it gets us a step closer, and we inch closer, and we inch closer, and we inch closer, and I've really come to believe that. So, I think a lot of good organizing took place. I saw a lot of people mobilize with Avi, and now it's time to not just mobilize, but organize and take that into our communities. So.
We always love hearing from you on this network, and we hope to hear from you again soon. Thanks for giving us your time.
See, I got my swag on,
You're repping. We love to see it.
You can get some Breach swag at the Breach store if you want to support the Breach. You know what I mean?
Doing my job for me.
All right, good job, Desmond.
Thank you.
You're killing it.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. That's Elle Jones, the homie, professor, poet, anti-prison activist, all-around wonderful person. Came out and supported Avi, and I'll just say this, and I don't think Elle minds me saying this. Elle hasn't really been a partisan in a lot of ways, not somebody who puts her name forward to support political candidates, but decided in this moment that she was moved to do so for Avi. And I think you hear her saying there that it doesn't have to be perfect, that this victory doesn't erase all of the challenges that are moving forward. Also that the NDP is not the movement, that the people are the movement, and that they have to pressure and inform the NDP rather than the other way around. We have another guest who's waiting in the wings right now, and it's just been incredible what our team has been able to do, putting everybody, lining up everybody together here today. But our next guest is going to be Bob Chandler, a longtime left-wing labor organizer based in Toronto. He actually supported the Avi Lewis campaign. Bob, I see you. I want to bring you in here. It is wonderful to see you in the flesh.
It's nice to see you as well, and this is a really wonderful day.
As a supporter of this campaign, how are you feeling right now?
Really good. We're moving forward again. I was at the 2018 convention, and a lot of us who are kind of a little bit more on the left side of things came out of it kind of feeling like, kind of depressed in a lot of ways, because there were a lot of acrimonious fights over Palestine, what have you, and the brass kind of trying to keep down a very pro-Palestine solidarity resolution. There was a lot of bad feeling coming out of that, and I haven't been at a convention since then, so this is the first one I'm at. The feeling is really good. Avi winning today is just amazing. It's like we're moving. It's like we're moving again. I'm also helping out in a by-election campaign right now in Scarborough Southwest for Fatima Shaban. And FatimaShaban.ca if you could make a donation. See, I'm going to make a pitch.
You have to. I mean, I gave you the microphone, right? I can't blame you for it.
Yeah, we've raised about $1,000, I think, on the floor of the convention over the last couple of days, which is great. And I think this will give our campaign a shot in the arm.
And we're watching those by-elections. Obviously, they're going to have big implications for a possible majority. I know you guys are going to try and stave that off for the Liberal government. You talk about Palestine. Obviously, the movement for Palestinian liberation in this country has never been more mainstream and more powerful than it is right now. And I think it's interesting to see that with this Lewis victory, the ways in which more left-wing advocacy has been being foregrounded in Canada seems to be being reflected in this race. The energy seemed to be with the Lewis campaign. He had the big events. He smashed the fundraising. What do you think about the idea that we may be seeing a resurgence nationally of this kind of left populist sentiment?
I think this is our turn. I kind of watch with interest the left populist turn in the UK with Zach Polanski and the UK Green Party. It's bizarre. I was watching a by-election in Manchester, England, and cheering on a UK Green Party candidate across the pond. And I think we have the possibility to do similar kinds of things here. I think that. We also often get compared with the Mamdani campaign in New York, and there's some similarities there. I think it's a little bit more. I'm more of a Zach Polanski person, but myself in terms of I think that's a class-based ecological approach is the way to go. Where we combine. I'm a lifelong trade unionist as well. Spent 40 plus years in the trade union movement, and so I think, and I understand the insecurity some people may feel because I was involved with helping workers going through the very unjust transition to free trade, which devastated Southern Ontario, destroyed a lot of jobs. I understand the fears, but I think what's really hopeful for me is that we can link together the struggle for a green economy in a very class-based way, and I think that this campaign, the Avi campaign, unites those ideas, and I think we can bring them together.
He's got a big challenge ahead of him, but as we say, there seems to be a lot of enthusiasm as well. I want to allow you to go and enjoy this moment. Thank you for giving us some of your reflections today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And FatimaShaban.ca, please send us money.
Nice to see you, Bob. As Bob Chandler, NDP activist in Toronto, very excited about the upcoming by-election that's going to be happening, one of three that is possibly going to determine whether or not we continue to have a minority government in this country or a Liberal majority. We shall see. As I mentioned before, obviously the NDP is going to do everything that they can, not just to stop Carney from getting a majority, but reestablishing themselves. Now everything that happens in the aftermath of this race is going to, in many ways, reflect, in some sense, on the Avi Lewis campaign, fairly or unfairly. So I think that that's something that we should be watching for, is that, you know, if there are successes in these by-elections, people might be like, oh, well, okay, the Avi Lewis camp, interesting that he came in and there's some electoral success right off the bat. On the flip side of that, if Avi comes in and what we think is going to happen happens, which is that, you know, the Liberals are quite strong in all three of these by-election ridings. And if they take those, then, you know, I'm sure some of the punditry is going to suggest that, you know, it's because the NDP is not an attractive option. And we've got to give Avi Lewis some time, obviously, to get into this role and to see what he's going to do. I want to bring back Martin Lukacs now, our managing editor, who joined us earlier. And you've been able to see some of the reaction in the last little while. No surprise, I don't think. I think the numbers were around what people were telling me in the party. They said a range of 55 to 60% for Avi Lewis on the first vote. He was right in the middle of that, around 57%.
I think for people who were in the know, who had checked out campaign events, who had approached this race with curiosity, that was probably not a surprise. But there was so much naysaying in the establishment media that written off the NDP, said it was consigned into irrelevance. I think those people were probably surprised. But I think those who have come out to events and gotten a taste of the kind of unapologetic politics, I think they knew that there was a lot of momentum behind the campaign.
The naysaying is going to continue. We know that it's going to continue. Al Jones was listening to the scrum right over here over my right shoulder of Wab Kinew and hearing some of the questions that we knew were coming already of, isn't it anti-Semitism for Wab Kinew to attack the Epstein class, as he called it at the convention on Friday? Isn't it wrong for Avi to be attacking billionaires? We know what's coming from the mainstream media, so I guess he must have a strategy in play already of how he's going to negotiate a kind of very prejudiced entry into the conversation as far as the mainstream is concerned, anyway.
I mean, I think it's no surprise that the establishment media have been attacking, Avi Lewis, will continue to attack him. That's their role. but I think they're woefully out of touch with where Canadians are in this country, and I think that's what this campaign has proven. It has, I think, spoken to a potential progressive majority in this country, and I think what Avi Lewis was talking about resonated deeply with that. I mean, I think we have in this country fundamentally a progressive majority that believes this country is rigged in the interests of the rich and powerful, that has a hunger for bold policies like a Green New Deal, racial justice, public ownership and deep investment in public services that we rely on. And I think the result is a testament to that we have had in this country a crisis of political representation. No representation electorally of those kinds of politics, though they are super majorities that back the kind of policies that Avi Lewis was putting forward in this campaign. And so I think people are going to be in for some surprises, and especially the very serious pundits that control the parameters of what is considered politically realistic in this country.
And along those lines, The Breach did an explainer video not too long ago about public options for grocery stores. Obviously, the cost of food in this country has been not a talking point, it's been a reality for so many people since COVID, really, just like a dramatic skyrocketing of everyday goods. We did a video, we put it out there into the world, and it was inundated with these angry, negative, conservative, troll kind of responses about like, what a silly idea. And yet, what I noticed about the reaction to our video was that there are very few counters to this idea of like, well, how do we make groceries cheaper? So there seems like there may be an opportunity here for somebody like Avi to putting forward like these bolder ideas and saying, but what's your vision and what's your solution? Because conservatives have had this opportunity. Carney made a very piddly kind of grocery benefit recently that isn't going to do much for people's everyday experiences. So do you see this pathway that might be there for an Avi Lewis to say, I actually have an answer, what's yours?
Well, what was striking is there certainly were some conservative voices, namely in the Toronto Sun, who, and the Globe and Mail, who used, that proposal for public grocery stores to attack, the campaign. But I also think support for such ideas cuts across the political spectrum. And in fact, Avi Lewis, in one of his campaign events, talked about receiving letters from conservatives, people who identify as conservative voters, who were like, I kind of hate your party, but I love this idea. And I think, once pollsters get around to actually polling how much support there is for something like a public option for groceries, I think you're going to see super majorities of Canadians backing it because it's an idea that makes sense. And I think it's about time for a party to advocate on behalf of what are fundamentally common sense ideas. That connect with people in this country, but have never really gotten a proper airing in the mainstream media, and certainly not proper advocacy by a political party.
We have had a very interesting experience being here in Winnipeg. It's something our team has never done before. And I know you yourself have been balancing these two hats, as we say. So I want to say congratulations on as somebody who worked very hard to see this result today. And I'm really looking forward to us being able to continue covering now this party, the movements that inform it, and see what's going to happen next in Canadian politics.
Yeah, I mean, I think seen in the long arc, this is a historic result. The left in this country has never had the leadership of the NDP. There have always been, currents on the left, democratic socialist currents, dating back to the origins of the CCF, the precursor of the NDP. The Socialist Party of Canada was one of the founders of the NDP. But in every generation, the left has been marginalized. The Socialist Party of Canada was marginalized, ironically, by Avi's grandfather, David Lewis, who represented the center and right wing of the party in the time. In the 1970s, Avi's, for another ironic twist, Avi's father helped purge the Waffle, which was a left nationalist current within the party. There have been other attempts in more recent decades for democratic socialists to win the leadership of the party. Sven Robinson in 1997, who was a close colleague of Libby's, who you spoke to earlier, lost in a close leadership race. Judy Rebick, we spoke to her earlier this week, was involved in what was probably the most analogous effort to win the party leadership and open up the party to the energy and power of social movements in this country. That too was narrowly defeated on the convention floor. And so, this is the first time that a democratic socialist has been the leader of the party in 100 years. So it's a fascinating moment. It happens in a moment when the left more broadly, I think, is quite weak. We've had incredible social movements emerge over the last 2 decades, Idle No More, Occupy, Black Lives Matter in Canada, but they have often been, created incredible cultural change, but not left the kind of political imprint, I think, that we need a party for. And so I'm really curious to see what might be possible, not just in terms of what a socialist-led NDP can advocate for, but the way in which it can interact as one part of a common front of movements with all of the forces on the left, whether in the tenants' rights movement, the indigenous rights movement, racial justice, anti-pipeline environmental campaigning, and see, coalescing those movements, what might be possible.
And we'll be there watching and covering. And Martin, we'll see you back at home. We'll be seeing our audience back at home. And thanks very much for all of your analysis and breaking down everything that's been going on.
Thank you, Desmond, for holding it down all morning.
My pleasure. Martin Lukacs, the managing editor of The Breach. And, I think it's about that time, folks. I have been on my feet here for a couple of hours now, I think, since we began. I have not been able to do it, though, without an unbelievable team of people behind me. So I want to say shout outs to my incredible producer, Cachilo Innes, to the phenomenal efforts of Alan doing a tech masterclass to get us here and to show you what you've been seeing and hearing during this weekend's convention. We've got Ella Sabarin over here, who's been also holding it down for us, taking images, holding it down at our event this weekend. To everybody at the Breach team back home in various places in Toronto and Montreal, we want to say thank you. We want to thank all of you for watching us this morning. It's been a really interesting leadership race, and we're looking forward to covering what happens next. So please stay tuned. You've got to like, you've got to subscribe, breachmedia.ca, and go up and sign up right now for our newsletter if you haven't already done that. Tell your people, hit like and subscribe. Go ahead and sign up for us on socials and keep us in your mind for whatever is going to come from here. We appreciate your viewership this morning. Thank you for your ongoing support of our work. So long from Winnipeg, and we will be seeing you soon. Take care.